Okay, Rex, I just gave you the link to share out.
Where'd you say?
Twitter.
Okay.
Okay, Rex, I just gave you the link to share out.
All right, I just retweeted it.
Sweet.
Twitter. Okay.
Yeah, it's doing the whole lag thing. All right, we're good. Welcome everybody. This is Everything SVM. I am Alex Kahaya. I'm the founder of ABK Labs, where we're focused on building open source software that accelerates Solana. And I've got my co-host here, Omar. Omar, you want to say hi and give a little shout out for Mantis?
Hey guys, I'm Omar, founder of Mantis. We're an SVM rollup focused on processing user intents across Solana and Ethereum. And
today, really excited to have Rex here from Anza. He leads DevRel there. Rex, you want to say hi real quick?
How's it going?
So just to recap for people who haven't seen this live stream before, we started Everything SVM as a place to share information and have a discourse around the future of the Solana virtual machine, and to just share information and create a forum for everybody to share ideas and hopefully move the space forward, especially around things that are open source. Open source software is something that I get out of the bed in the morning to build, and wanted to use this live stream as something that helps us do that and communicate what we're working on. And Rex, like I said, is at Anza, sorry, and is leading DevRel there, and gave this really cool talk back at a workshop in August and I guess earlier this month. And I wanted him to kind of share some of what he shared with the community IRL on the show today, and we could have kind of a conversation of that. But like Rex, the thing I really liked was your overview of the SVM space. It was a great picture of what's going on, and just great, fascinating to hear what Anza is working on related to that. So maybe, do you want to just jump in and kind of give a little, before you jump into the presentation, like just share your story with people, like what's your background, how did you get into working in this ecosystem, and then we can kind of go into the presentation and you can share some of your thoughts there.
Absolutely. So I've been doing developer relations, and before that, I was a software engineer for 5 years. I worked at building ecosystems at Intel, ARM, Mastery, and NVIDIA. And then while I was at NVIDIA, I was on the Jetson team, and I was working on edge computing ecosystems. I became extremely obsessed with crypto, and I left to co-found or join an early stage startup, which has since launched at a multi-billion-dollar market cap in the Cosmos ecosystem. And I was attracted to the Solana ecosystem and Anza because there's a very strong semiconductor lineage here. I mean, all the founders, key guys in Solana, are ex-Qualcomm, so they've got a very, high performance computing mindset. So I found that quite interesting and very technically driven. So I joined Anza earlier in the year. I think February, I think.
Time flies when you're having fun. Out of curiosity, Rex, like what about that semiconductor background with a lot of the guys coming out of Qualcomm was interesting to you? Like what excites you about that aspect?
Oh, this is just all about optimizing everything about the validator down to customizing it at the silicon level to map it as closely to the behavior of the silicon as possible to achieve like the maximum performance. So, I had been working in edge computing, and that's all about, how to use Kubernetes across a decentralized compute network to share workloads. And that's effectively what Solana is. I mean, I view Solana as like, ultimately doing what, Kubernetes, was the late stage in trying to do, which is like, how do you break up a workload across multiple machines and get them working together? And then I think ultimately, the DePIN movement of decentralized computing is going to happen on Solana. Solana is going to be the best in class digital native payment that AI uses to pay other AI. So I guess my obsession with DePIN, something I've been talking about for years, Solana is the place where DePIN seems to be, happening for real.
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, the blockchain speed at the speed of light, NASDAQ at the speed of light was the thing that attracted me to Solana at first. And I obviously I don't know as much about the silicone layer of it as you do, but I certainly think it's really fascinating, these optimizations to the validator client. Do you want to walk us through a little bit of this presentation that you have here? I would love to kind of hear the insights you had in there and get your overview of what you think is happening in the SVM space.
So this is the talk I gave at Mountain Down in Salt Lake City with the developers there to give them some insight into the core, roadmap of SVM, the RPC scheduler, and the validator itself, and what to expect in the future. Oops, which button do I push? I think. Let me know if that work. I think it did.
Yeah, that worked. That worked. There just might be a little delay on the transitions.
So my name is Rex St. John. I already gave kind of the overview. Have done hundreds of workshops. I've organized dozens of events. I founded Refi Summit, which is the largest blockchain climate summit, and we ran that twice here in Seattle. Working extensively in the Cosmos ecosystem, on Web3 gaming ecosystem, working with hundreds of gaming projects there. And now I'm working on the Anza core technology ecosystem, which is SVM and the Agave validator. You can follow me at Rex St. John. I probably shouldn't put my email in this, but oh well.
Too late. It's okay. Only like 3,000 people are going to see this.
If you're from North Korea, then just fish away, I guess.
So somebody call Trent.
So I mean, this is it's a complex, broad role that involves working with the validators, partners, the comms and education, the developers. So a lot of different things going on to do Anza DevRel, and it's changing all the time. And I think I'm guessing the ecosystem around Anza is going to grow by 50% in the next 6 months at least. So when I joined, I spent time in startups and time in big companies, and every big company and most of crypto is obsessed with roadmaps. Like Ethereum loves roadmaps, everyone loves roadmaps. And when I joined the Solana ecosystem, it was pretty clear that there's like a policy against roadmaps. It's like there's no roadmap. We're just gonna do like the next thing that makes sense, and then maybe in 3 months we'll figure out what to do after that. So that's kind of like the Solana approach. And I'm like, well, that there is a roadmap. It's kind of like an implicit roadmap, which is it's across the SIMDs, the Solana improvement documents. It's in the feature gate activations, the feature gates, which features are being held and unlocked for which versions. And it's in the GitHub PRs. So it's like you kind of have, and then it's also in the heads of a lot of the core engineers across the ecosystem. So there is a roadmap if you can interview it out of infer the roadmap versus like an explicit roadmap. So when I joined, I kind of was like, I did an exercise of attempting to extract an inferred roadmap out of all this different things going on. So I mean, it kind of looked like this. I don't know if people have seen this before, but the first stage was basically Anza was founded. It forks the original Solana Labs client, then it takes that and converts that to Agave, and then the old Solana Labs repository becomes archived, and then Agave becomes the active development branch of the main Solana validator, which is not an official validator. It is a validator because we're going to have several. So all of this is just kind of like getting in position to have multiple validators and then break up the core, monolithic Solana Labs client, which contains the SVM, RPC scheduler, and whatever else core validator. So we're going to finish this initial set of activities when Agave v2 comes out, which will be in the weeks after Breakpoint. So this was the first step of just figuring out, I call it not a roadmap, what the not a roadmap is. Any questions on that before I keep going?
Yeah, I wanted to ask a question about what Agave v2 means, but maybe you're about to get to that.
Agave v2. So Agave v2 is Agave v2 will be the point when the Solana Labs previous GitHub repository becomes archived and then the main active branch, all the activity go from the Anza team at least goes into that agave fork of that. It will have a range of different features and changes to it, which are all visible in the change log. Uh, from I'm talking to Helios now, who are doing a long form blog post where they're going to go through the changes in the change log. Basically, all the engineers document what they've done, and then they put it in the change log. And then with each change log, we kind of have like a number of. I think the last change log for like 2.06, which was on testnet. Now we're up to 2.07 on testnet. There's a number of breaking changes. So there's like we've put together a migration guide about how to go from the past agave 1.18.x and so forth. We're skipping 1.19 and going right to 2. So when you say what is agave v2, it is a lot of changes and features and plus a few, probably a handful of SIMDs and major features that are getting activated. uh, I don't have on hand that full list. If you look in the change log, if you go to the Discord and see the change log, you can go through it. I think most observers would probably most enjoy reading the Helios blog post. I think
I was gonna say, I think
yeah, I'm gonna help
if Helios is listening here, please come on when that launches so we can talk about it. You guys are doing God's work with the content marketing at that company, just like documenting this stuff. Yeah, would love to have them on when they get it open.
I can mention a few things. I mean, like the central scheduler is going to become the default scheduler. Right now, it's an option. Like you have to turn it on. And what that does is the previous scheduler used was called a greedy multi-iterator algorithm to randomly pull transactions that are coming into the validator and pack them into blocks. And then a lot of those were failing because there was no consideration given to which accounts were, like there's just a lot of out of order execution, and like one thread will grab an account that's being used by another thread and perform an illegal operation, and then that gets canceled. And then there's no consideration being given to priority fees attached to the incoming transactions. So the new scheduler is much more deliberate about that. It adds a new thread that like is picking the best quality transactions and then looking ahead to avoid conflicts. And this has so far shown a very significant increase of the fee collection for validators. So I think most of the major validators have already switched this on by default. So that's gonna get turned on automatic. Like right now, it's an optional flag, and that's gonna get made the default scheduler in V2. There's a El Gamal ZK encryption feature that's going to be in V2, which is going to be useful for confidential token transfers. And I think you can imagine that that's going to be a major popular use case. So I mean, there's a whole list of stuff in there, and then there's a migration guide. So there's a bunch of stuff that's getting turned off. So a bunch of deprecated endpoints for the RPC API. So I think the Helios blog, I'm going to help them put that together. Will be the ultimate, thing to read, other than the change log notes.
All right, cool. Yeah, let's keep going. I think the next slide is more about like we've got this standalone Agave v2 section, and then the standalone SVM runtime. And it kind of points over here like Magic Block, Sonic SVM, Eclipse. Some of these guys have been on the live stream so far. What's your view of like the SVM space and how this stuff impacts that?
So by far the most important thing that's happened in the last couple months is Anza has released the SVM API. It's a Rust crate. And then we've released a blog on the Anza blog that goes into detail about how to use this SVM API. And that is going to is kicking off a very wide range of activity of people taking, because right now Agave is 1 million lines of code effectively, and the SVM, aka C level, is merged in with the rest of the code, like the RPC and the validator. So separating the SVM out as a standalone SVM, that's pretty much underway or has happened, and that's going to enable people to build all kinds of new flavors of Solana on Ethereum, or Ethereum on Solana, or every Rome protocol was calling it Solana in Ethereum. I don't fully know what that means. It sounds cool. So the SVM coming out is going to enable all kinds of things, and we're seeing like Mantis and many others. Like Soon was announced today, that's doing like OP stack, and we can get into that later. But breaking these things apart is just allowing people to innovate on every level of the stack, basically. And I mean, it's going to look like, I think this most summarizes what's kind of the core pieces that I think are being pulled out and customized. And then even beyond this, I'm seeing people, customizing within these pieces. So any comments on this? Or
Yeah, I think the one that I'm most interested in is like the decoupling of the consensus part. Because in order for us to actually have rollups secured by L1, we need the ability for the L2 to roll back based on whatever the L1 is saying. And I don't actually know if existing Solana consensus actually allows you to roll back, like in the context that we need it to for a sequencer system. So I think that's like something I think that would unlock a lot of innovation for like roll-up teams. I'm not really sure if there's that many people interested in security from the L1, but it definitely is something we're very keen on doing, basically.
I'm seeing I'm from the conversations I'm in, there's a lot of people thinking in the same direction right now. They're all like running into the same kinds of questions, like what happens if you remove consensus. Uh, like there's a thread earlier, and I posted a slide from Soon's technical architecture. They're introducing something called a oh boy, what is it called? It's a forked SVM versus a what SVM? What is it called?
Decoupled. I think they call it decoupled. Yeah.
Decoupled SVM versus a forked SVM. So they've got a slide they've shared where I think currently their observation was a number of people are going down this forked SVM route, and they've done some research. They have a very smart technical team, and they've figured out a way to use Ethereum to pay for gas fees, remove the voting transactions, which are like 80% of the network. I think Solana's got a lot of voting transactions flying around. And then once they've done that, they've got this decoupled TPU, so that like, and like there's a lot of technical work that goes into that. And my understanding is, with optimism roll-ups, you end up with a single valid. I could be getting this wrong. You end up with a single validator that's doing the validating, and then so basically they're going to have a very high performance version of Ethereum that uses SVM, and what that in theory unlocks is multi-threaded processing of transactions, whereas the EVM is single-threaded. So they're kind of making this, mix and matching SVM together with Ethereum and dropping the consensus piece. It's complicated. It's like they were explaining like what the work that goes into that, and it's not straightforward. And I think that ultimately their intention is to open source or build around that effort to share it more broadly. And their stated intention is to build like OP stack kind of thing, so that could be used as the basis for a lot of projects. So maybe a lot of people can. I think the downside of having all these other teams extending Solana, in the Ethereum world, I think they've been there've been a lot of talk of fragmentation. The upside is you attract more builders and they contribute more, brain trust to the core technology, and they do things like customize an OP stack of Solana and then open source it so others can use it. So I'm hoping that Solana manages to gain the benefit of more net talent while maintaining low fragmentation. Hopefully, would be the end result of all this.
Well, the interesting thing is, I think our ecosystem has the benefit of seeing how this rolled out on Ethereum and can try to at least learn from some of the lessons learned in that ecosystem. And so far, everybody in that SVM community chat that we started has expressed the desire to achieve what you just said, right? Everybody wants to contribute. They want to avoid the fragmentation and contribute to shared open source tools so that they can all get to market faster. So the intent is there. The coordination piece is the hard part. And I think what you guys are doing at Anza and largely some things that we're working on at ABK and the things that Soon is working on in Mantis to create components that make Solana modular are going to enable what you're talking about to accelerate. Like this idea that more people can be core contributors to a smaller part, right? They can just work on the standalone SVM, the execution piece of the standalone SVM. They can optimize that. Once you move from this monolithic architecture to this more modular system, it becomes easier to contribute. And we've seen it's funny, a lot of the things in Web3 are just repeats of Web 1 but in better ways, in my opinion, right? So an example of this is Linux. Linux started as a monolithic architecture and then became more modular over time. And now you've got people who just work on this part of the kernel. And there's thousands of developers working on Linux, right? And it powers most of enterprise infrastructure around the world. And I think that's my hope, Rex, is that's where we end up going, is that with this modularization of Solana, is it ends up being way more people contributing to smaller parts of the core technology. But we'll see. It's early days. I feel like I saw a tweet from Vijay, the CEO of Eclipse, about how when they started, they were really one of the only L2s, if not the only L2. And now they're popping up every month, but it's still we're seeing more of it, but there's still dozens of teams. Right? We're not talking hundreds or thousands. It's small.
Great. Biggest thing is I already mentioned the migration guide we've put out. I'm just kind of touching on for the ecosystem. Take a look, do a search for Agave V2 migration guide. It's on our GitHub. There's a number of things that are going to break if as a developer, if you're calling these RPC endpoints. So people really need to go run that guide for sure. And so I've done a refresh of the documentation. I think we'll have more in that coming later. Don't need to go too far into that topic. Doing a ton of content that people can read. And I think this is the fun part, which is the core technology landscape, which is the main interesting part of this presentation. So here we go. So we're basically seeing, I think when I got here, there might have been, 1/3 the list of projects that are in flight right now, but we're seeing growth across all of these segments. And I'm from, NVIDIA and Intel and ARM. We're pretty big on ecosystem and tracking the ecosystem and understanding it. So I started working on this, and I've been working with the super team guys, co-authoring posts and stuff for some time. And so I put together this map of everything in flight right now. And then I also put together a public Airtable, which has a public spreadsheet of all of these and websites and links and descriptions. I don't have the link on hand. I tweeted it out, a few weeks ago. So this is where we're at today. And I think I would guess by the end of the year, we're going to see this is even a break point. I had to guess this would be 50% greater by the end of the year. We'll see, I guess. It's gotten to the point where I can no longer fit it all in one slide. And I think that's only going to continue as people customize this stuff. So seeing this, slide, which I've put out in different forms, um, I don't know. I kind of want to take a break here. Like Omar, Alex, do you have any comment? Like, otherwise, I'm just gonna go right into like rattling off all these and talking about them, and I don't know if I need to do that.
Well, my only thing is thank you for putting this together. I retweeted out the Airtable for you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So what do you want to do this? I mean, I could go through it and talk about these different projects, or just like the high level categories, or everybody's favorite fire dancer.
I think.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, high level categories, and then maybe some of the ones people may have not heard about as much, like like Zen, I think is a cool one that maybe, yeah.
So we've got a number of different clients coming. I've mentioned that as part of the transition away from the Solana Labs repo, Anza has renamed a number of key crates within the validator. Originally, it was called like Solana Dash Validator or something like that. There's a lot of references to like Solana this, Solana that, and we renamed them to Agave. And people were like, "Well, you're breaking all my automations. Like, why are you doing this?" And the answer is because we're making room for there to be other validators. And if we, some of these crates that refer specifically to stuff that's being maintained by Anza, we're renaming it to be Agave, because we're seeing it, like 6 different teams potentially that might want to introduce or are working towards introducing their own validator. So the point is, towards the goal of ultimate decentralization, not having a canonical Solana validator is the path forward, and making room for other teams that are maintaining these core technologies independently. So top of the list is obviously Firedancer. I think enough has been said of that. I think the most important thing to know is that the strategy for Firedancer is they're wrapping, or they in their build process they import Agave, which is a million lines of code from based on the original Solana Labs client. Then they turn a bunch of stuff off, and then they provide C language rewrites of a lot of the core components of Agave. And I mentioned before about the semiconductor piece. So the Jump Capital team, their background's all in high frequency trading, and a lot of that involves optimizing everything as close to the silicon as humanly possible. So some of the diagrams they've rewritten, they've rewritten all of this in a concept using these. Are they called cells, or they're called something? They've tiles. So they've got this concept called a tile, and a tile is like it's a modular piece of software that's designed to work to maximize the performance of a single core. So if you've got a computer that's got 32 cores, then they've broken it down where it's like this core is going to be executing this tile of code. And if you go through the Firedancer code, you'll see all these references to tiles. And the reason for doing that is it's a way of it's a form of parallelization that maximizes. It's meant to maximize the throughput and computation and utilization on a per CPU basis. Most of these systems have multiple CPUs, so they've got this architecture that gets the most out of an SoC that's got all these different cores on it. So that's Firedancer, and they're doing this Frankendancer go-to-market, and I'm not going to comment too much more on that, but it's expected to be 600,000 to 1 million transactions per second. And I think there's some physical limitations about how fast that can go, but theoretically 1 million, but like realistically, we'll see. Jito, what they do is they take the Agave validator and then they add some additional things. They used to have a mempool, they took that out, but they've got some additional logic they add to it. Syndica is doing a Zig language rewrite. I guess Zig is getting talked about more and more. It's like a successor to Rust or an alternative to Rust. Seeing people talking about that. So they're undertaking a full rewrite of the Agave validator, and I think part of that involves like re-architecting it or making it more modular. I haven't checked in with them lately to see like where they're at, but I know that's been going on. Tiny Dancer, they're doing a light client that's meant for their go-to-market is is helping to validate bridges, and their first project is going to be this Spice Net. So it's like a bridge attached to a DEX to help people bring coins in there from different sources, I guess. So that's on testnet now, but I think they either are launching with SpiceNet or they have launched. I haven't fully been watching where they're at.
I think they've launched.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. Zen is super interesting. It's this guy Cypherus Prime. He has a real name. I just think of Cypherus Prime when I think about him. He's a ex Google guy, and Zen has been like a proof of work Ethereum and Cosmos coin. Like I think they're launched on multiple different networks, but they're working towards. He keeps posting updates on his main Twitter. They're launching a Solana L1 like with its own validator set. It's going to be a proof of work called X1, and he's been going through the Agave code and finding like low hanging fruit and finding like significant optimizations for what he's doing. And I guess if you just take the Agave validator and you do an L1 of it by having your own validator set and then removing all the other transactions in the network and then dedicate it, it's going to be a proof of work system. So they're just posting some pictures of like their worldwide coverage earlier today. It's pretty exciting stuff, and like he's also been experimenting with using interoperability through ZK. So he's been posting some like stuff that I barely understand. Really smart guy.
What's his Twitter handle?
Cypher's Prime, I think. It's Dr. Jack Levin, I think.
I'll try and find it.
It's Mr. Jack Levin, Mr. Jack Levin.
There, I got it. Cool.
Yeah. Overclocks is I believe they're a validator operator, and they're introducing something called Mythrol, which is a Go language rewrite, which is meant for constrained energy devices. So those are all the clients that are underway, and I didn't include Agave in this list, but I probably should have. So that would have been the 7th validator, technically. Magic Block, I mean, they've been posting some, I mean, they're doing a high performance, they found a technique to do a roll up within Solana as a L1. They've got some methodology where they can take a workload and move it to a validator that's operating at a higher performance somehow. So it's like, oh, this workload, let's leave it on Solana, but it's going to go to a specific validator that's like more performant than the other validators, and that's going to let you do real-time gaming. And I believe they're also working on a bare metal SVM. They've been talking about that for a while. I'm not sure where they are with it, but their whole thing is how do you make super high performance gaming experience on Solana, and they've got this ephemeral roll-up technique they've come up with. Light protocol and air chains. Light protocol, there's been some debate about if this is a roll-up. I don't fully understand it. I think some people have called it a roll-up, other people have. So it's a ZK compression methodology, and like it helps to get the size of Solana's state down, like the bloat of the accounts, by a factor of 1,000. So I think a lot of people are hoping that paves the way towards helping to a partial solution to the state growth problem that Tolly has been complaining about on Twitter for some time. SVM on ETH, we just had Soon announce earlier today, and they released some details on their technical architecture. I commented on that earlier. They're doing OP stack on Solana, basically, of Solana, using optimism stuff combined with SVM. And a big part of their argument is, they think they can get performance increases at the SVM by doing this, and they also think that this will aid Ethereum folks to come into the Solana ecosystem. So we'll see how that goes. Eclipse and Ellipsis. Eclipse, uh, another SVM on Ethereum. Ellipsis also. Um, Neon EVM is doing ETH on Solana, EVM on Solana. A lot of people doing rollups. Since we've got Mantis folks here, I mean, like maybe why not call that out, Omar? What's Mantis all
Yeah,
about?
yeah. I mean, so basically, like there's like doing a roll up on Solana is very different than what others may think doing a roll up on Solana, would look like. I think the first, like what we've really tried to do with Mantis, aside from like the actual use case, which the use case is, a processing layer for intents for different chains. So, someone on Solana can want to do something on Solana or on Ethereum or somewhere else that's IBC connected, and the Mantis rollup will essentially process it and route the intent to the right location for execution. But I think something we've really tried to do with Mantis is to like not repeat the same mistakes made by Ethereum L2s. And so we started out building Mantis with the design principles of it's going to be natively IBC enabled, so there's an interoperability solution, and that we would be able to settle securely to Solana and inherit L1 security while not having some sort of like weird 7-day fraud proof window, and having some type of proof that allows for verification on the L1 so that people can withdraw instantaneously. That doesn't necessarily need to be ZK because Solana is much cheaper than Ethereum. And so, yeah, I think, Mantis is essentially an experiment to see, how much can we push the world of rollups as we know it on Solana versus what has happened on Ethereum, and then harnessing that specifically for the use case of how can we actually make Solana the home for chain abstraction. I know that's a lot of buzzwords, but that's the only way I know how to explain it.
Very cool.
Rex, we're getting towards this top of the show here in the next like couple of minutes, and I'm kind of wondering like here's the big picture, right? These are like all the different things that are being built with the Solana virtual machine, which is crazy, right? Like there's Bitcoin that's leveraging the SVM, there's ETH, there's like, I mean, it's nuts. And then there's these permission environments that are enabling like all these highly regulated use cases to work. What should people be expecting in the next like 6 months, do you think? Like if you had to make some predictions here of what we're going to see happen, where do you think this space is going? What are you most excited to see?
That's such a great question. There's a lot of things I can't talk about. I think at this point, I feel like people know that there's like all of this stuff is in flight. And there's also, new flavors of validator coming. And I feel like there's going to be, I wonder, if there's going to be a before and after this breakpoint. This is my first breakpoint, but this breakpoint really feels like a tipping point. It feels like there's going to be so much stuff announced at this breakpoint and in the weeks leading up to it and after that. I think there's like a lot of, momentum behind this ecosystem. And it just feels like it's at this tipping point, like a breakout point right here. And a lot of these projects I've been talking to for months that were all in building phases, with like release periods in the next month or two, basically. So I think we're just about to see like a pretty major catalyst at the end of September. I like the deliverable is this whole ecosystem. Like a lot of this stuff, a lot of these projects are in the works in various phases. Like So it's like we have a map of what's about to happen. It's not like all live yet, but in a couple months, all this stuff is going to be like carrying real transactions and traffic, and all the developers and all the open source contributions to things like Soon's OP stack and IBC connection, like the light client that composable and Mantis built to bridge IBC, like all this code that they're building is going to be live and open source. And that I think that SVM group you guys started may actually be the key thing. Like I think that group looks like it's going to turn into a conference. Like there could be an SVM conference standalone, because we're going to go from just Anza contributing to like 50 projects. And I think that the rate of innovation is going to happen very quickly. And beyond that, I think that there's a number of features related to ZK, zero knowledge, that are good, just confidential token transfers. Like I don't even think we've started the ZK conversation in Solana yet. Like so, I think that's probably going to be the breakout topic, I would guess, after Breakpoint. I couldn't answer.
I agree.
Yeah, I think like I don't even think ZK zero knowledge has even started yet, and that's going to be a huge area. There could be dozens of projects in that category. So I think we're just beginning.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that it's been interesting to see the evolution of Ethereum, and I think like we're just at the beginning of that evolution for Solana in terms of like, we have a lot of the primitives now on Solana, but as far as like the scaling roadmap, obviously different type of scaling roadmap, but the scaling roadmap, the like L2/SVM landscape, interop, ZK, I think just all very, very exciting stuff. I think there's also going to be like after, obviously everyone's super excited for Fire Dancer, but I think also like actually the day of seeing that in production is just going to be such like a ridiculous moment when you think about it for like all other blockchains, period. So I'm personally really excited for that as well.
Yeah, I can't comment too much on Fire Dancer. I think that well, I think after Breakpoint things are going to be quite different. We'll see, I guess.
I think the ZK point is interesting. That feels like a bit of a dark horse that people aren't really thinking about. And I think even 3 or 4 months ago, SVM, like the alt SVM space was that as well. Like it kind of burst out onto the scenes. And when we started the chat group, the reason I even started it was because I had like 10 teams in my Slack, and they were all different teams, and we were all siloed. And I was talking to all of them, but they were saying the same things. Like they want interoperability, they want to do customizations to the validator client. And I was like, we're building open source software. We should just all be like saying this in a group where we at least have visibility that we have shared problems. And it went from like 10 teams to almost 200 people in like a month. And I honestly was surprised. I knew there were some groups working on these like alt SVM projects, but I didn't realize the sheer number of not just teams, but individual people involved in these projects. Like in that Telegram group, there's close to 200 people, but that's not the total size of every company, right? Like some of these companies have 30, 40, 50 people on their teams and tens of millions in venture funding. I think the alt SVM space has like probably 200 million plus in funding to date. Across all these different projects, which is pretty interesting. And that's been from starting about 2 years ago, when some of these teams actually raised their like seed or Series A or whatever. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see where we land. We should have this conversation again right after Breakpoint, or like 2 months after Breakpoint, and see what's happening.
I bet things will be 50% more projects, like at least would be my guess. We'll see.
Well, Rex, it's been awesome to have you on. Last question for you before we wrap. How can people contribute to Agave and to your work? How can people help? What's your like sort of call to action for anybody who might be listening?
First thing is, if you're a validator or developer, make sure you check the Agave v2 migration guide, so you don't have any unpleasant surprises about endpoints or SDK calls you're using suddenly stopping working altogether. I would make sure to go look that up. Just search Agave v2 migration guide. I would definitely read the SVM API blog post. That's super informative, and it outlines all the use cases about what the SVM API enables. I think that's very critical reading, and more people should take a look at that. There will be, assuming I'm talking to Helios about the V2 release notes, and hopefully, there'll be something long form and pleasant to read rather than a whole list of obscure, change log commits from engineers that may or may not make, broad market sense to a lot of people. So those are the three main things. Follow Anza, XYZ on X. I'm Rex St. John on X or Twitter or X, and those are the main things.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show. Thanks, Omar, for being here again. And everybody who tuned in, thank you so much. If you're building in this space, my DMs are open. We'd love to add you to the community chat. It's an open forum for anybody who's actively working on this stuff. So just reach out to me and I'll get you the Telegram link. But yeah, thanks for being here today. We'll see you guys back on Twitter. X.
Thanks.
All right,
Thanks,
bye.
Rex.
Yeah.
See you.